The best way to ensure that your dog is actually going to be able to leave the item alone as you ask them to walk away from it is to start off by having it in the opposite direction from your dog. So if you're putting something down to their right and you don't want them to touch it, you're going to ask them to move away to the left. Eventually, we can ask them to start moving past or over the item once we see that they can successfully get up and move without lunging forward to snatch it.
Rachel begins by setting food down, a bit away from Fredo,
Yes.
and rewarding for pretty much anything other than going for the food. Notice that she's feeding him away from the food. We'll begin shaping for looking away from the food and then moving away from the food, which we'll talk about in more detail in the advanced section. Here, Fredo shows a lot of self-restraint by moving towards the food and then moving away. And here, he stops and then looks away from the food.
Yes.
Now Rachel is waiting for Fredo to look away from the food to mark and reward. She waits for him to look directly at it, and then, even the slightest glance away, she marks and rewards. We can shape this behavior into our dog looking directly at us, rather than just looking away in general, which can be helpful for communication in reactive situations. Now, Rachel is going to increase difficulty by physically standing up and removing herself as a barrier between Fredo and the food. You may need to lower your criteria here, as this can be very difficult for a lot of dogs. Rachel begins moving around and continuing to mark and reward for Fredo looking away from the food and at her.
Yes.
She can use that treat to move him physically farther away from the food as well.
Yes.
Now Rachel will begin shaping for Fredo physically moving away from the food. She'll reward for even the tiniest movement away. She uses a hand target to help him understand what she wants him to do.
Yes.
And then marks and reward for even one paw moving away, and builds that up to him walking further away and following her.